Today I'm building a miter saw station. This one has two different sliding stop blocks, a French cleat wall, floating drawer pulls, an aluminum fence, and a measuring tape, plus tool storage and a bunch of custom 3D printed parts. My shop's gear kept piling up, so a new station went on the to-do list. Before I started, I watched a ton of videos on YouTube, and based on what I needed, I designed this miter saw station with a French cleat wall. Combined with the workbench upgrade coming later, it should really round out my small shop. Cleared the space and got to work. Let's start by cutting the marine plywood. I'm keeping the base separate from the cabinet since I'm renting this place. The basement floor isn't perfectly level, and even with the flooring I put down, there's still some variation. The base frame is there to help the cabinet stay level with the floor, while keeping the dimensions consistent. If I ever move, all I'll have to do is build a new base to match the new floor, and the station will still be level and stable. I used pocket holes to put the base together. I used an 11 1/8 inch board as a spacer to keep the base frame rails evenly spaced for even weight distribution. Marine plywood only comes in 8-foot lengths, so I needed to add a separate base frame to fully support the whole station. I set the base frames on the floor and used shims to level them out. Where the gap off the floor was bigger, I added the extra blocking for support. Pre-drilled holes, then screwed the support blocks to the frame rails. I cut all the cabinet panels before starting assembly. Using a 5 by 2 inch piece of marine plywood, I marked out all the domino mortise locations. After that, it's just endless drilling, gluing, and fastening. Drilling, gluing, fastening. The upside is I had the basic shape of the station done in a single day. Set all the tool cases out to see how it'd look. Wood glue and a nail gun got all the drawers built. 1/4 inch marine plywood for the drawer bottoms. For cost reasons, I skipped Festool's own tool case rail system and used 3D printed clips to lock the tool cases into the drawers instead. This was my first time building drawers, so I tried out a few different slide options. I used both DIY hardwood slides and standard drawer slides. John Heiss has a really detailed build process on his channel, How to Make Wooden Full Extension Drawer Slides, worth checking out. Turns out standard slides are great at everything except being cheap. DIY hardwood slides take more time but save money and use up scrap. Either way, installing 20 drawer slides is no small job. The key with metal slides is getting the position right and keeping both sides level. DIY wood slides take a lot more steps, plus you need to sand and finish them. You also need to make a separate jig just for drilling the mounting holes. The install details really matter here, or the drawers won't slide smoothly. The drawers were stacked so tight there was only 1/8 inch of clearance between them. If I built this again, I'd make the station 1/2 inch taller, which would give at least 1/4 inch between each of the 4 drawers. Luckily, in the end, they didn't interfere with each other and slide in and out just fine. There are plenty of tutorials out there for installing metal slides, either face frame or flush mount, either works. The main thing is figuring out the drawer height accurately, including the bottom panel thickness. The drawer width also needs to leave 1/4 inch of clearance on each side for the slides. For the bottom slide, I shimmed it up 1/16 inch. That way the drawer doesn't waste space, but also doesn't rub against the cabinet. I set the slide back from the front of the cabinet by the thickness of the drawer front. A 3/4 inch block of wood does the job. Same idea between drawers. I used a 1/8 inch spacer to mimic the bottom panel and kept installing slides from there. Looking pretty good. With the cabinets in place, it's time to work on the top. To keep the work surface as large as possible, I had to account for the miter saw's swing range and cut away the parts of the top that would interfere with it. 2 angled cuts up front, 2 notches in the back. Mark the lines and cut them out one at a time. I used pre-finished marine plywood for the drawer fronts. To prevent tear out, I taped over the cut lines with painter's tape. Cut the shape, then sanded the edges. Used a 3D printed template with a router to cut the drawer pull recesses. Applied hard wax oil, then installed the 3D printed drawer pulls. The tool case drawer front still needed to be attached to the drawer boxes. And that wraps up the drawers. Craig's cabinet hinge jig made hanging the doors a lot easier, drilling and mounting with easy fine-tuning too. The worktop is 2 layers. The bottom layer is marine plywood fixed to the cabinets. The top layer is black laminate MDF, which holds up better to wear. Both panels are edge-banded in maple. For the exposed wall above the station, I used pine for the backer board, then added the French cleats. Measuring the miter angle precisely and cutting it on the miter saw kept the trim flush with the top. I measured the space under the top on each side of the miter, saw and built a small drawer for each side, dressed up with floating drawer pulls. Small odds and ends can live in there. Used a speed square to find the angle for the drawers, then cut it on the miter saw. Assembled it up, slides nice and smooth. The floating pulls are done, and so are the French cleats. Now it's time to do the T-track and measuring tape on the top. Used a router with an aluminum rail as a height gauge for the bit, then pulled it out and routed the groove in the top to match the rail's dimensions. Drop the track in flush with the top, 2 tracks total. One is for the sliding stop block, the other is the mounting track for the fence. Above the T-track groove, I used the width of the measuring tape to route another 1/16" deep groove for the adhesive back tape. That makes cutting to length way more accurate. Stuck the measuring tape down, then cleaned up all the little edge details. Installed the T-track. Drilled holes at the far end of the track so the T-bolts can drop in. Add in all the little jigs and add-ons from earlier. And the whole miter saw station is done.